So Ben is here with us today, and he's going to speak about his experience at university and how he managed. So thank you so much, Ben.
Hello everyone, hello. So good to be here. Sorry, I sort of burst in on your speech, Louise. I think what you were saying was amazing at the end there, so thank you for that. Hello everyone, my name is Ben West, I'm a mental health campaigner. And just briefly, I want to, before we talk about universities, before I talk about my time at universities and some tips that I can give you and some feedback from my time at university that I can hand on to you, I want to actually explain to you why I'm here, explain to you why I do anything to do with mental health at all, explain to you why I'm in the situation that I'm in, because growing up, mental health was not something that was ever talked about. It was not something I ever thought I would be working in. It is not something I ever thought I would have an interest in, and here I am in front of all you guys talking about it. My experience with mental health started in an incredibly tragic way. It started with this. This is a photo I took on the 21st of January 2018. About 20 minutes before I took this photo, me and my mum found my brother who had taken his own life. Sam was 15 years old when he died. He'd been diagnosed with depression in September 2017, and I was told by my mum, but I had absolutely no idea what that was. I had no idea what that was. And so, just as a lot of people do, they're told something they don't understand, they're told something about mental health, and I just ignored it, and I never spoke to him about it. When Sam died, I realised not only was mental health this thing that everyone has, but actually it's so important that we look after it, because I suddenly realised what happens if it all falls apart, what happens if we don't look after it, what happens if we don't get the treatment, the care, and the crisis intervention that we need. After Sam died, I was still at school, I was 17 years old. I stood actually a lot similar to how I'm standing now in front of the whole school, and I spoke at a memorial assembly. And at the memorial assembly, I just sort of said, you know, mental health's this thing. We've all experienced a loss due to mental health at this school. Let's do these things to talk about it more. Let's break down those barriers. Let's help those people that are in that position. Before I did that, before I stood there and had that moment with the school, almost all the messages I was receiving from people were, I'm so sorry to hear what's happened. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you to help. Immediately after I did that talk at school, every single message changed to, I need help. This is what's going on in my life. What can I do to help? I need to talk to you. I need to talk to someone. And that immediate change from me being vulnerable to my school in terms of how safe people felt coming to me was amazing. But also, suddenly, I realised that almost everyone I knew in my life had something going on they weren't talking about. I realised in my life almost everyone I knew had something they didn't want people to know about. They had something that they were struggling with. And I guess for me, just after Sam had died, that ignited quite a fear inside me. And I wanted to try and help these people that were reaching out. And that's when I started campaigning for mental health awareness, campaigning to stop people from feeling alone with their mental health. And that started very locally in my school. I organised a charity walk. Basically, I got people dressed up in bright pink colours. We went on a big walk. My ambitions for it was very low. I wanted it, a little walk with my friends, get some people out, get some people talking. We ended up walking 200 kilometres to Downing Street, raising loads of money, getting loads of people. I think there was 450 people walked the whole thing with us, which was amazing. And then there's a bit of a theme with my campaigning and the last 4 years of my life is I started listening to some people, and I started listening to my teachers and Sam's teachers, and I started to realise that actually they were so ill-prepared to deal with mental health in the classroom. They were so ill-prepared to have those conversations with children. And I guess that's when my campaigning took that next step to a policy, to a legislative, to a more nationwide scale, and I started a petition to make mental health first aid part of teacher training. I'll be honest with you, that sort of exploded a little bit. It went, it snowballed, and it went, and I think so many people suddenly realised that this was actually this massive problem that wasn't talked about. Teachers going into schools being taught how to teach, but not being taught how to look after young people. And suddenly we had this platform tried to have this platform where we were trying to get that change in government, get that change in legislation, improve teacher training, give teachers the ability to signpost, to intervene, to offer that crisis intervention, and then get them on the conveyor belt of support in terms of the wider NHS and early support hubs. So yeah, that's taken me to Downing Street, to Kensington Palace, some big names, some big people behind it. I won't lie, it's still a work in progress. We took it to Downing Street. We had some really good conversations with Downing Street, but that was 2019, and we're yet to hear back. But you know, it's a work in progress. I think so many teacher training organisations now are rolling this out on their own accord, which is fantastic. And then I started uni. And I started uni at a very strange time in my life because it was 2018, so it was about 5-6 months after Sam died. It was a bit of a turbulent moment in my life, but I went. I'll be honest, first year I absolutely loved first year. Had a great group of friends, I was very, very lucky. Second year was when the pandemic started. As a mental health campaigner, as someone that talks about mental health, I started talking more vocally on social media, and I started having some very interesting and sometimes very sad conversations with people. I had some conversations with friends of people at university that had just lost friends at university. I had conversations with parents that had just recently lost children at university. And that's when I was involved in this study with Accenture. And I just want to go through some of the research that we found in that study, and then I want to sort of reflect on that and talk about my experience. So, university, the best time of our lives, right? Everyone says, let's go to university and have the absolute greatest time of your life. You go out, you make friends, get a degree, get a job, make loads of money, all of this stuff. And actually, I don't think it is. At least it wasn't for me. I had some good times, don't get me wrong, but I certainly don't think it's the best time of my life. And I think if that was the best time of my life, then, you know, I've not got a lot more to look forward to. I think so many people are misled when they go to university that it is going to be this incredible, star-dusty, beautiful thing. And actually, for so many people, it's not. And it's not. But because we tell everyone it's the best time of their life, when it's not the best time of your life, whose fault is it? It's yours, because everyone else has the best time of their life. And so we started this research. We wanted to show the world, show university, show government that actually, for a lot of children, for a lot of young people, this is not a good time, and actually they're not enjoying it. And obviously this was taken in the frame of COVID-19. So I think a lot of this is almost exaggerated, not exaggerated, but, you know, in focus in that way. But I think in terms of the conversations I've had, this is very much continuing through now, the themes that were found here. So firstly, and this one shocks me, 55% of respondents say they feel lonely every day or every week, or daily or weekly. That's crazy, because you go to university, again, they're like, join societies, meet loads of people, make loads of friends. No, 55% say they feel lonely every day or every week. And, you know, again, just reflecting on my experience, yeah, absolutely. You know, you go to university, you're going to go into the student houses, and I think so many people get very, very isolated by that, even outside of COVID-19. You know, I remember my student flat had this massive fire door, and you shut that fire door, and it's almost like a symbolic separation from you and everyone else. And then 39% said their mental health had declined since starting university. It actually got worse since they got to university. And there we are, telling everyone it's going to be the best time of their life. So when we asked why people felt like this, why people were worried, what people were worried about, actually one of the highest things on that, worried about not doing good enough or not doing well enough. They're worried about deadlines, worried about, you know, studying for they're studying for long hours, finding a job when they leave university, all this sort of, you know, what you'd imagine. But I just want to go to that top one. 73% frequently worry about not being good enough or not doing well enough. this I feel so much because I spent most of my time at university always thinking I wasn't doing well enough or I wasn't doing good enough, always chasing the next thing, the next goal, the next me, all of this. We get a new year, it's the next you, it's what you're going to do, how are you going to be better? And that, for me, is draining. And no one really talks about this, but the first thing I want to say in all of this, with little tips and that I want to give, is just, I think, give some credit for where you already are and who you already are. And I don't think that's said enough in this world. I really, really don't. Like, you've got to university, and everyone celebrates when you get your results day, and then you get to university and no one even thinks about it anymore. And you maybe mess up one assignment, and then it's like the end of the world. But you forget, why were you celebrating when you got to university? Or when you got your A-level, your GCSE results, you celebrate and then you forget. And at university, especially in going through life, it can be so easy to sort of forget about the milestones. And that's the first thing I want to say, is just give yourself some credit for where you already are and who you already are. Because actually, getting where you are now has taken a huge amount, and it can be very, very easy to forget that when you're snowed under with deadlines and with stress and graduate jobs and all of that. And then we asked about barriers. What stopped people from reaching out for help? Because we all know there's help available, right? You can always go and talk to someone, you can talk to the NHS support, you can talk to university support, but so often people don't do that. They don't talk to friends, they don't talk to services. And so we asked why, and actually 42% say they don't know what to say, don't know how to say it. 34% say there's no one or nothing anyone could do to help. 31% feeling ashamed or embarrassed about their mental health. 27% not trusting your concerns would be handled in the right way. Then 21% not knowing where to go. 21% worrying about that it might affect your academic success. Like, these are not small numbers. 42%, 34%, 31%, 27%. As a show of hands, can anyone relate to anything on that board as a barrier for you to go and ask for help somewhere? Yeah? I think most people will probably relate to that a little bit. But I want to focus on the top one, not knowing what to say or how to express what's happening. I learned the hard way that you had to talk. And we talk about talking now with mental health as some really easy thing. Like, talk about your mental health. Just go and talk about it. It's everywhere, isn't it? Honestly, one of the hardest things you can do. Anyone that gets up and has that conversation and admits themselves and admits to someone else that they've got that problem, they've got something going wrong, they've got something that needs to be dealt with, has so much respect from me. It's an incredibly hard thing to do, because sometimes you don't know what you're meant to say. You don't know what you're feeling, let alone how to say how you're feeling. But what I would say is, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, you've got to make that first step and try and have that conversation. And even if that is just a case of making a cup of tea, not really knowing what's about to come out, and seeing what happens, it's so important. I would give absolutely anything to go back and have a conversation with my brother. I've got no idea what I would say, absolutely no idea. But I know that we would have said something. Don't let not knowing how to say it stop you from trying to say it if you're struggling. And please, please don't let not knowing what to say stop you from talking to someone that you're worried about as well. Because we can always make excuses if I don't know how to start that conversation. With mental health, I always try to tell people, if you think someone's struggling, then assume you're the only person in the world that does. The only person that's noticed. Because I feel like at the moment, because we talk about it so much, everyone assumes it's someone else's job. And then the person whose real job it is as a friend sort of forgets, or a family member forgets that actually they're in the perfect position to have that conversation. So not knowing how to say or what to express. I was shocked at 42%, especially when we've got so much awareness around mental health at the moment in the news and the media. So, a little bit about my university experience, and a little bit of some information that I want to give to you about coping at university, how I coped at university. So I went to the University of Liverpool. Like I said, first year, absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved first year. But I was doing aerospace engineering, and guys, I have no idea how to do aerospace engineering. It was so hard. Is anyone in here doing engineering? Yeah, I mean, I'd take my hat off to you. It's a hard degree. Maths is really, really hard. So I loved physics at school. I loved maths and physics at school. So I was just like, yeah, let's go and do aerospace engineering. How hard can it be? Maths, physics, let's do it. Like I said, first year, it was okay. Second year, what's this? I walk in and there's this on the board, and they're talking about how this flies, and the aerodynamic, contribute, whatever they're called, I can't remember the words anymore, of these things, the Beluga aircraft in Liverpool. I won't lie, guys, I struggled. I really, really struggled. I was in a lecture theatre full of 300 people that got it, and I didn't. And every Tuesday we had a 6-hour problem class, and it was basically you walked in, you picked up a piece of paper, and it gave you a question, and you had 6 hours to solve it. For the whole of second year, every Tuesday, every semester, I didn't get a single one right. And what we spoke about earlier is we're worrying about not being good enough or not being, good enough as a person. I forgot, as soon in that moment, you forget about all the other stuff that you can do, and you just completely focus on that one thing you can't do. And for me, it was working out these things, these Beluga planes, right? Every Tuesday, I'd fail. I'd fail every single Tuesday, and it was horrendous. I hated it, and I never told anyone about it. I never did. I think the way I responded to not being able to do uni was partying harder, going out more, completely just separating myself from my course, pretending like, it was their problem, not mine. It was awful, really awful. And then lockdown happened, and I was isolated, and I spent 2 weeks on my own, and it all very, very quickly got very, very much for me. And I just want to go through, on reflection, some of the things that helped me get out of that space. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to start with checking in on yourself. This is, I think, one of the most crucial things that never gets talked about in terms of mental health, checking in on yourself. It's so easy to sort of check in on someone else, walk past someone, have coffee with someone and tell something's up. Actually, it's a real skill to be able to know when you're not doing okay, because often it's a case of I need to work harder, or I need to do better, I need to work harder, I need to do more work, or put more hours in, rather than actually checking in and being like, I'm burnt out, or actually this is quite a lot of stress. Checking in with yourself, I do it quite religiously now, every morning. Have a little check. How are you feeling? How are you actually feeling deep down? Get away all the distractions, put your phone away, have that 5 minutes just to be like, how am I actually doing? Because at the moment, again, with the whole mental health conversation at the moment, it's a lot about how are you looking after each other, how do you talk to other people about their mental health, how do you support other people. Actually, what's more important than that is actually how do you talk to yourself about your mental health. Check in with yourself. When I realised I couldn't cope at university, when I realised I couldn't cope with this course, when I realised I couldn't do maths, that was a moment where I was just like, oh my God, everything makes sense. All this stuff that's going wrong, all this stress in my life has come from the fact that this has happened. And actually, on reflection, has come from Sam dying and the trauma and the grief that's come from that I just completely left undealt with. But it was only from having that moment, that realisation of, whoa, this is all that's going on, that I realised that. The second one is get outside. Get outside. It's one of the most talked about things when we get to mental health, but it's so, so important. When I said about the problem classes, when I said about my course, what was my go-to solution to that stress was work harder. And you know what? You go to university, and that's what they're going to tell you in a lot of cases, is you're struggling, work harder, do more hours, work harder, go to these extra classes, go work overnight. How many students pulled an all-nighter because they're not getting through? Getting outside, actually getting away from university, so, so important. So important. If you're struggling with work, just have a go. Take it away. Go outside. Go for a walk. Religiously, do it every day. That's something that takes a lot of willpower to do, especially when you're bombarded with the whole work. If you're struggling with work some more. And then, again, talk, family and friends. Again, it's a hard thing to do, an incredibly hard thing to do. And if you are in that position where you're having that conversation, my respect goes out to you. It really, really does. But so, so important. My situation improved the day that I had that conversation with my mum. And I was like, look, I'm really, really not doing this. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. I felt the lowest I'd ever felt in my entire life. I felt like a complete failure. I couldn't do my course. I was failing all these modules. I was failing this thing. I felt like a failure. And it was only when I talked to my mum that actually I almost got the first point of checking in with myself. It was only when I talked to her that I was like, oh wow, yeah, I am actually not okay at all. And as a result of talking to my mum, as a result of talking to my friends, I actually ended up getting counselling, and I did 6 months counselling. And it was one of the most transformative things I've ever done. But that only came from that first conversation. And I would say anyone struggling at university, struggling with a course, have that conversation with friends, have that conversation with your housemates or anyone like that. And that extends further than that as well with money and financial problems. Again, with the whole cost of living crisis at the moment, so many people with the knee-jerk reaction is, can't talk about that, can't talk about that. But actually, having that conversation, you realise how many people are in the same position as you. So you definitely talk to them. And then prioritise your time. That's in the next slide, you might have seen it, but I'm going to get onto that. Prioritising your time is so important. Again, it sounds like I'm feeding you eggs and just giving you what everyone tells you, but I didn't realise just how overworked I made myself by just prioritising everything, when actually you can't do that. Then get further support. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, but like I said, the transformation came from counselling, clinical support. There is so much support out there. Universities, I'll be the first person to tell you that universities need a lot of work to be done to upscale their mental health support. But the support is there. It is really there. And so many people feel scared to go and talk to them, feel like they're not going to listen, feel like it's not going to be dealt with. The people I've met that work in the university mental health services are amazing. They're really lovely people. They have very little resource. That's fine. I know that. They have problems of their own, but the people there are lovely and they do help. And those services are there. And if you're struggling, go to them, talk to them, ask for advice. Ask for advice. Just as you wouldn't understand a question, you might ask your lecturer or your professor a question. I think these services are there to use, so please do that. Counselling, like I said, was transformational for me. And then, like I did, it changed direction. I realised that I was not going to be designing planes. And actually, I looked at it as almost a service to humanity. I'm not designing planes now. Had I been designing planes now, I'm not sure many of my planes would fly. So I've saved lives, okay? I've saved lives by not designing planes. Changing direction is almost seen as a failure. And actually, when I realised I was going to drop out of uni, I looked at it as a failure. I felt so miserable and such a failure and so low. But actually, life is full of change of directions. It's full of changing your minds. Okay, I'll admit this is an expensive change of direction, but it has been amazing. I work full time in the mental health space. I absolutely love what I do. I love it. But that wouldn't have come if I hadn't have had that conversation with my friends and family, hadn't have had that counselling, hadn't have reached out for support, hadn't have prioritised my time, hadn't have got outside more and checked in with myself more, and all these things to realise that I was in the wrong place and I was doing the wrong thing. And actually, sometimes admitting that is a really brave and a really amazing thing to do. And that's not me saying, drop out, it's an amazing thing to do. No, it's been very, very stressful. But I'm just saying, changing direction is possible, and actually sometimes that can be the solution. So just to jump back one to prioritising your time, this I think is where a lot of my issues came from. Prioritising everything. You know, you can't prioritise a 9 a.m. lecture and a night out. I realised quite quickly. So prioritising what you go to, prioritising what you do, prioritising the inside uni and the outside uni, the going outside, the going inside to a lecture theatre. And I know this is, again, very, very simple, but I use a traffic light on my calendar. Green, you don't have to do it. Red, you have to do it. Amber, sort of here or there. And actually, you know, it was really simple, but it worked so well for me. Just to be able to put things in my calendar and immediately have red, okay, I have to do that. So if there's a green that's in front or behind it, that green goes. If there's a yellow, let's see if I have time, let's see how I feel on the day, or let's see how I feel on that week. And I would actually encourage everyone, put that in your calendar. Red for yes, yellow for maybe, and green for no, in terms of whether you have time. Because so often, and my calendar's the same right now, it's just pages and pages of stuff filling up everything. And what that doesn't give you is any perspective about what's important. If you can sit there and plan your day with red, amber, and green, suddenly you're like, okay, actually my day seems a lot less stressful, a lot easier to manage. And actually you can start putting some red ones in for you. The get outside, the non-negotiables in your own, on your own schedule. And then I just wanted to mention this because Student Minds is here and I absolutely love Student Minds. Anyone can get support for their mental health because there is an amazing number called 85258 that's powered by Shout, the crisis text line in the UK. And Student Minds runs a keyword to this. So any student in the UK can text student to 85258. And what happens when you text students to 85258 is you'll get through to a volunteer. And you can have a text conversation with that person at any time, 24/7, for free, anywhere in the UK. So if you don't want to go to your university support, if you don't know what you're going to say, if you don't feel like you're going to be looked after or treated with respect or anything like that, or if you don't think that or you think it's going to have a bad impact on your academic career, like the research suggests, that is anonymous, that is free, non-judgmental, and it can be accessed 24/7. Text student to 85258. It's an amazing service. I do loads of work with Shout. They're an amazing service. I think they've reached something like 1.5 million conversations now in only a few years. It's an amazing, amazing service. And definitely one to save in your phone. And like I said before about talking to your friends and family, if you don't know where to signpost them, it's a fantastic thing to signpost people to because it's there in their pocket, day or night, 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They can text and help and get that help. And then change direction, you know. I'm not making planes. I'm in the mental health space, and I only realised that because, you know, this is what I love to do, and I wouldn't have realised that I love to do this had I stuck there and added work to get the work done. So yeah, thanks guys, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay.
Thank you so much, Ben. Honestly, like I said, I met you a few years ago doing the podcast for Radio 1, and I was inspired then, and I'm still inspired. So thank you so much for that. I do want to open up. We've got about 10 minutes, actually. I do want to open up for any questions for Ben. So, and again, anyone online, anyone here, obviously, any questions for Ben, because I think that was not only a very inspiring story about how you've change something really tragic into something that helps other people, but also I think some really important takeaways and tips that are very practical, which I'm a big fan of. It's like the how do you do that? So any questions at all from our audience here? Yeah, we'll just get a mic actually. If there's a mic available, we'll just get a mic to you so that people at home can hear as well. Okay, thank you. I'll let Ben take the mic now.
Thanks for that, Ben. Changing directions, really quite a bold thing to do and difficult. Can you talk us through how you went about doing that?
Yeah. So I started my dissertation, and my dissertation was to design, build and test a remote piloted UAV aircraft. And I started planning for it and got to the stage where I was starting, and I was sat at home, and it was November, December time, dark day, and I was in my room, and I got to this part where I had to calculate the tail volume coefficient, and I was just like, what? And I Googled it, and I looked in all my textbooks, and I couldn't find it, and everything that had been bubbling away for 2.5 years just released, and I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is not what I want to do. I have no idea how I'm going to pass this. I've got no idea what I'm doing. It was not a nice thing to go through. It was it was not a good evening. And that was the night I went downstairs and I was like to my mum, I can't do this. Honestly, I can't do this. And I guess it was realizing how much damage it was doing to me as well in terms of my own health. So just before I made that decision to leave, I lost 10 kilograms in about 3 weeks. I was so stressed. I was basically constantly unwell for that couple months. And suddenly I made that decision to leave, sent the email, suspended for 2 years, suspended my studies. And I sent that email, and honestly, my face changed, and it was amazing. But no, it wasn't easy. It was not easy, because you're seen as a failure by dropping out of things, and I'm a university dropout, but I don't see it as that at all. I think actually what it shows is just how important it is sometimes to prioritize your health, and also prioritize finding a way in something you actually want to do rather than something you think you want to do. Because for me at least, and I know this is probably not a pretty unpopular opinion considering why we're here, but university was sort of a conveyor belt in school. It's like, this is what you end up doing. I never really had the freedom of thought to think of anything different. So it was like, if you don't do well at this, you're a failure. And suddenly I was dropping out, which is the epitome in my head at that point of being a failure. But, you know, it's not like I wasn't doing anything. I put all my time into work, tried to make a job. Now I'm self-employed, doing okay. And, you know, I've built something now that I absolutely love doing that's now paying me as well. But it was hard, very, very hard. And I found telling people that's so hard. My grandparents, that was a difficult conversation. Like, this is, yeah, I've dropped out. But, you know, I think it just shows how important it is to look after your health. And that's why I check in. And if you're actually that unwell, then something needs to change. And maybe it's not you, it's where you are.
Thank you. I think that's so important. I've changed directions many times in my life. Even though I'm a doctor, I'm still a doctor. I've done things which a lot of other doctors were like, why are you doing that? Like singing on CBeebies with puppets about emotions. And when I changed direction from hospital medicine to general practice, I got a lot of judgments, a lot of comments about that from different people. I doubted myself. I also then was, you know, I based myself in one practice and I wasn't very happy, and I questioned what I was doing and why I was doing it, which then led me to unhappiness, probably led me to actually then going out to find other things to do. And like you, so I think that whole thing about changing direction, for about 4 years, I actually thought there was something wrong with me, in inverted commas, because everyone else was, you know, in one practice, you know, doing that kind of job. And I thought, gosh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? And then actually, as the years have gone by, I've started to realise that actually this suits me better, and all of us are individuals, and we all have to try to find that courage, or find the people around us who can support us to make the decisions that are in line with who we are, because we're all completely different. And on the other side of changing direction and all that scariness is actually also opportunity and excitement. Uncertainty brings a lot of fear, but it also brings a lot of excitement and opportunity as well. So Ben, that's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to let you go, but I think you're going to be around for a little bit, I think, yes, to answer questions. So later on over lunch, if anyone's got a question for Ben, then please do let. Oh, we've got one question here actually. We've got maybe just one time for that. That'd be great.
Quick fire.
Yeah, quick fire.
So my question is, I just want to clarify something. When you said get outside, does it really mean that you should like have a break for what is stressing you, then go outside to look after yourself, you know, to do what makes you happy? What if in a situation whereby you know what to do, you know how to really get outside and what you're supposed to do to relieve you of the stress, and still not being able to do it? Let me give you an example. Like a student parent, you're a full-time student, you've got children, you've got your business, and it's really stressing you. Definitely, I know I need to like go outside to look after myself, but some circumstances around me still wouldn't let me do that. So in that case, what do?
It's a difficult question. It's a really difficult question. I guess, yeah, I think it comes down to not necessarily priority, but recognizing how important it is, and finding that thing. And maybe it's not an hour outside or an hour-long walk. Maybe it's literally a 5-minute meditation, and you don't need to get outside in that space. Get outside of your life, sort of thing, and do, you know, look at Headspace or something like that. Or, you know, even instead of eating breakfast inside, go and take it outside. Or like try and integrate a part of your life into getting outside. Maybe if you're able to, instead of driving kids to school or driving to the bus stop, maybe walk them so you get that space outside. And it's sort of maybe looking at life and sort of trying to identify something that, obviously in an incredibly busy schedule, what could be adapted to then allow you to have that time outside, if that makes sense. But I completely understand, you know, we're talking about you doing something to alleviate stress, but often stress is coming from the fact that there's no time to alleviate, right? And then what I'd say as well is, again, the scheduling and looking at that and trying to find what can be prioritized less and what can be prioritized more, and finding that space. But no, it's a difficult one. It is difficult. But then trying and using that time, like, look, our phones, right? I'm the worst for being so busy, but going on my phone for 10 minutes in the morning instead of doing something, or those little pockets of time that can be spent doing something outside or something like that. But I do appreciate that's hard. But yeah, maybe think about the ways that you can integrate something you're already doing into outside, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much. I think that's really great advice. It is hard, and actually we want this event to be very much grounded in real life, because that's what mental health is part of. And so there are lots of articles, aren't there, out there, and lots of things you can read, which is almost sort of advice in an airy-fairy world. It doesn't exist, but we want to make this tangible and real. And you're right, time is a big issue. So simple things like how to integrate different activities, I think also how to find things that work for you. And I think that takes time. Like, what works for you? The tools that work for you will be different from the tools that work for me, for example. So what are those sort of 3 go-tos that really help you? For me, it's probably it is actually getting outside and having some fresh air, even if it's just sticking my head out a window. It's probably also music for me as well. So music really helps me. And also actually running or doing something with my physical body to kind of release the stress. So I think it's interesting just to kind of explore for all of you here and all of you online, actually, what are those 3 really simple, small things that work for you, and trying to kind of put one of those in your day. So Ben, I just want to say thank you so much, honestly. A round of applause for Ben before you go. Thanks so much. Thank you.